Hi, this is Henry from Face Up. We're going to be doing a brief video on extras, talking about the basic things that you come across when you play this game that confuse a lot of new players, so we thought we'd like to clarify. So the first thing I want to talk about is entry of extras. I want to stress that you can bring in extras once per turn under normal circumstances, and extras are something you can also level up, which I will be talking about later on. So let's start with the normal cost of bringing in extras, which is to pay the cost on the card. So in this case, this extra's cost is to discard a character. Before you can even pay this cost, however, there must be a copy of this character on the board already. So in this case, this character is already on the board. Now I can pay for the cost for this extra. Just discard a random character, discard it to waiting room, and then you flip this over like this, and you bring the extra in, and everything's good. Now there is another way that's not as popular nowadays, but it used to be a lot more popular to bring in extras, which, can you hand me a total stuff?
Yes.
Alright, you can use total. So, just like before, the character's already on the board. Then, in order to bring out this extra, what you have to do is you have to remove a copy of herself from the waiting room to the backyard. So if this is in my waiting room, I remove a copy of herself from the waiting room to the backyard, and then I meet the conditions to bring in this extra. Now it does not have to be the same exact card, it just has to be the same character name. That's all it is. The next way of bringing extras onto the board is via conditions, which is something that's becoming more popular lately. I'm going to use Rem from ReZero as my example. Now, in order to bring Rem's extra in via condition, what you do is at the beginning of the battle phase, you can choose to draw one, and then you can choose to discard a card from your hand. And if you do, you meet the conditions of bringing this extra in, and it happens. Now, if you notice, under normal circumstances, you can only bring in extras during the main phase. Because this is via condition, you can actually bring this in during the battle phase. Also, this bypasses the rule of only being able to bring in one extra per turn. You can actually bring this in even though you've already brought in an extra of a different character or even of Rem herself on that same turn. The next type of extra I want to talk about are extras with multiple characters on them, such as these two. So just like before, at least one of these two characters must already be on the board. For the sake of argument, let's say she's on the board. If you want to bring in this extra, the other character must either already be on board as well or in your hand. If they're in your hand, you discard the card from your hand to the waiting room, and thus you can bring in the extra as such. If they're both on board, you have to pick one of the two. One of them must go to the waiting room. I'm going to pick this one. The other one goes face down, and you bring it as such. It does not matter which one you bring in, but you have to pick one to go away. The next thing I'm going to talk about concerning extras are stats. Now, under normal circumstances, I'll use this as my friend. Friends, you only count the stats that are in the larger bubbles, the 0 and the 1. The ones that are in the smaller purple bubbles, you do not count as a friend. However, extras are different. For extras, you do count these purple bubbles. So this is not a 5-4, this is actually a 6-5. As I mentioned before, extras can also level up, just like your partner. This is something your friends cannot normally do. So in order to level up a partner, for the sake of argument, let's say this was a card you already had on board, your friend. You bring in the extra, which is a 2-character extra, by discarding this to the waiting room. In order to level up, because there are 2 characters on this extra, you simply have to discard a copy of one of the 2 characters. It does not have to be the same exact cards you used before, as long as they have the same character names, which can be found in these little brackets like this. That says Chino over there. So I'm going to discard a copy of Chino. This allows me to level up. Do as such. And it will gain the additional +2 stats on attack with the level up. Also, remember with leveling up, even though I did not talk about this in this video, it will put the character into face-up stand regardless of its position before. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is a special condition that is on relatively more recent extras. I would say in the last couple of years it's become a lot more popular, and that's sending the extra itself back to the extra deck. So let's say this is my friend and I bring in the extra. I discard a character. In this case the cost is only discarding a character, so it doesn't have to be the same card. Bring out the extra. Now, the condition on this extra, ignoring the first effect, is that I can send this back to the extra deck face up to then put another one of my characters face up. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to send it back. Now, an important thing to keep in mind when you do this. When you send the extra back, the character that's underneath it is going to be flipped back face, well, it's going to be flipped back into the position that the extra was when you sent it back. So if my extra was in face up stand, my character will go to face up stand. If my character was in face up rest, the character underneath will be face up rest. And under certain circumstances, if my extra was actually face down and it was sent back, the character remains face down. It does not go face up. Now I'm going to talk about some miscellaneous things that are kind of abnormal for extras that I feel are important to talk about. The first one I'm going to be talking about are extras that never come on the board. There are basically two types of extras that never come on the board. I'll use an example from Ars Nova and one from ReZero. The first one from ReZero is that it basically just gives a passive buff to your board. That's all it does. As long as you meet the condition, you can put it face up, the effect goes active. The next one for Ars Nova, this has a lot of text, I really don't feel like explaining this, but once you meet the condition, you can then do something special that you couldn't normally do. But this never actually comes onto the board itself. If you notice, it actually doesn't even have a name. The last thing we're going to be talking about is the most complicated thing you can run into with extras. In fact, I'm pretty sure no one is actually going to run into this in a real game, but I'm going to cover it just in case. So let's say I have Chino on the board, she's my friend. I want to extra into this character. This has both Chino and Chia on it, so I have to discard a Chia or send a Chia from my board to the waiting room. I'm going to discard it from hand. Discard, bring in the extra. Now I'm going to level this up. In order to level this up, I have to discard either a Chino or a Chia from my hand to level it up. I'm going to discard a Chia. It's now leveled up. Now let's say on my next turn, I want to bring in this Chino. Now you can only bring in an extra with one of the characters that's on the board. So this has both Chino and Chia, so I can bring in either a Chino or Chia extra on top of this. And yes, you can bring in extras on top of extras. So the cost for bringing in this extra is to discard a card. I'm going to discard a Megu, and it goes on top as such. Now if you notice, the level marker does not go away. That's because the level marker is now independent of the extra. Now this Chino also has the ability to send itself back, which I will do, and the level marker is still there. And that's how that interacts. One other thing I'm going to talk about is tap on entry. So if you bring in an extra, let's say we bring in Shadow. This is considering entering a new character. This makes this card now susceptible to effects, such as this event, that allows you to rest characters that come in that turn. So if just looking at the extra by itself, you bring in this extra, then I play this at the beginning of battle phase. This gets tapped because it came in this turn and it cannot attack. Now, where this can get a little more dangerous is when it involves partners. So let's say I'm using Shadow as my partner. I then bring in this extra on my partner, which you can do by paying the cost. Then at the beginning of battle phase, it automatically goes back to the extra deck. Now, this partner still retains the property of now being entered that turn. So this partner is now susceptible to this event. So if I were to play this event, I can now tap the partner, and the partner cannot attack.